still hear me? Loud and clear. Rahubat, peace and blessings. This is Grand Kush. Welcome to the channel where we deal with 9 science and other effectives dealing with the conscious community, the Black conscious community. Let me okay. This is for the pretendians, man. This is for the abos. All right. Now we know the definition of Indian, okay, is one who inhabits India, right? Now, they want to try to tell you that the Indians in America are the first Indians, right? But when you start dealing with the term Indian, you got to deal with the Spanish and what Christopher Columbus thought about the inhabitants of the Americas, okay? Dane Calloway told you that the term Indian, all right, the term Indian comes from...
This thing is major when it comes to us as
Columbus.
indigenous Aborigines. Okay, what they like to call us are, are Indians, okay? Due to Christopher Columbus mistaking who he saw when he landed in South America with the Iberians with him. Okay, I'm trying to guide him into...
What'd he say? All you got to do is go check out, I think it's Dane Calloway's his fourth or fifth video. You got to go back on Dane Calloway, man, because he's changed his script over the time. Okay. When you're dealing with Indians, okay, the Spanish thought that the original inhabitants in America were Indians from India. They look the same. All right, let's go into it. Okay, this might be a little lengthy. My information is all over the place, but we know, the original Sun people know that we came out of Africa. Okay, when it comes down to the origins of the Indian in America, what is your origins? Meaning, where did you come from? Okay, they'll say we was always here. I'm with that, but scientifically, let's prove that. Let's not talk that shit. Let's prove that, okay? And it hasn't been proven yet, all right? All the abos speaking, they talking about after the 1800s. You dig what I'm saying? And things of that nature. When they go do their research and they show you their research, it's always the 1800s, it's never the 1500s. They don't have no documents from the 1400s, okay, and things of that nature. They always talking about the 1800s, all right? Now, give respect where respect is due. All these mankind races, okay, got their revolutionary, liberative push from us, the Negro, okay, whose ancestors come out of Africa, right? The American Indian movement came by way of the Black Panther movement, okay? When you look into the Society of American Indian Freemasons, there is no Black people there. There is no Black people in the American Indian movement. And the American Indian movement, they stood alongside the Black Panther Party. The Black Panther Party, they wasn't claiming that they was Indians. Cut it out. And that don't mean we don't know ourselves. We know exactly who we are. We're the original human beings in America with woolly hair. Ethiopia is all over the planet. Okay, we're not all over the planet as Indians. All right, so let's start this smash down. Let's start the smash down. All right. We're going to start with this first. All right. Now dig, my nig, dig. Racial classification of Indian Americans. And they're going to say, that's not us, though, because we're American Indians. What is the difference? What is the difference? The racial classification of Indian Americans has varied over the years and across institutions. Originally, neither the courts nor the Census Bureau classified Indian Americans, okay, Indian Americans. Okay, the terms Asian Indian and East Indian are used to avoid confusion with Native Americans in the United States, who are also referred to as Indians or American Indians. Okay, it's not, you got to put East so you won't be confused, but essentially these people should be the same people. So you are identifying with dark-skinned people with straight hair. All right, let's not get that twisted. You see the pic down there at the bottom. We're going to get to it. As a race, because there were only negligible numbers of Indian immigrants in the United States. Early Indian Americans were often denied their civil rights, leading to close affiliations with African Americans. Okay, they coming up off our backs. They coming up off our backs. For most of America's early history, the government only recognized two racial classifications, white or colored. Due to immigration laws of the time, those deemed colored were often stripped of their American citizenship or denied the ability to become citizens. For these reasons, various South Asians in America took the government to court to try and be considered white instead of colored. After advocacy from the Indian American community, the racial category of Asian Indian was finally introduced in the 1980 U.S. Census. But you're going to see they've been in here since the 1700s, the 1600s, right? Among one of the first recorded Indian in America was a mix. You see how they don't have East Indian on them, right? You see that? Was a mixed race girl born to an Indian father, that's an East Indian, and an Irish American mother in 1680 in Maryland. Where did this Indian come from in 1680s? Where did he come from? In Maryland. You will see in Delaware and Maryland is where these East Indians were taken. Due to her Indian American father being classified as a Negro, she was classified as a mulatto and later sold into slavery. Okay. Court records from the 1700s indicate a number of East Indians were held as slaves in Maryland and Delaware. Upon freedom, they are said to have blended into the free African American population, considered mulattoes within the African American community. Okay. You see that? How they all blended in with us. We're the strongest stock. Okay. We're the strongest stock. Upon freedom, they are said to have blended into the free American population, considered mulattoes within the African American community. Three brothers, listen to this. Three brothers from modern day India or Pakistan received their freedom in 1710 and married into a Native American tribe in Virginia. The present day Nansemond people trace their lineage to this intermarriage of Pakistanis and Native Americans. So Dane Calloway said, we American Indians, not Native Americans. Who are the Native Americans in 1710? Can you identify? Can you identify? Okay. Now, let's click on the Nansemond, right? The Nansemond are the indigenous people of the Nansemond River, a 20-mile long tributary of the James River in Virginia. Jamestown in Virginia. Nansemond people lived in settlements on both sides of the Nansemond River where they fish with the name Nansemond, meaning fishing point, and Algonquin. Harvested oysters, hunted and farmed in fertile soil. Today, Nansemond people belong to the federally recognized Nansemond Indian Nation. Okay, these are East Indians calling themselves Indians in America, right? Related ethnic groups: Nottoway, Chawanoke, Chesapeake, Pamunkey, Mattapony, Chickahominy, Maharan, Aliwa, Saponi. Okay, so in some of these ethnic groups of Indian nations may have some East Indians in them. All right, gradually pushed off their lands in the colonial and following periods, the Nansemond struggled to maintain their culture. What culture is that? What is their culture? Okay, we talking about blacks as the Southeast Indians coming out of 5 civilized tribes, right? They reorganized in the late 20th century and gained state recognition from Virginia in 1985. They gained federal recognition in 2018 after Congress passed a bill. Many members of the tribe still live on former ancestral lands in Suffolk, Chesapeake, and surrounding cities. All right. Now it says here, the Nansemond people were members of the Powhatan Paramount Chiefdom, which consisted of about 30 tribes, estimated to have numbered more than 20,000 people in the coastal area of what became Virginia. They paid fealty to a paramount chief known as the Powhatan. They lived along the Nansemond River, an area they called Chuckatuck. In 1607, when a group of settlers led by the explorer John Smith arrived on the north side of the James River and established the settlement of Jamestown, the Nansemond were initially wary. Okay. So you go down here, right? In the 17th century, that's the 1600s. All right. The settlers got here in 1607. And they talking about somebody who was born in 1616, who was a East Indian. John Bass, a colonist in early 17th century Virginia, married Elizabeth, the daughter of the leader of the Nansemond Nation. After she was baptized into the established Anglican Church of the colony, they married on August 14th, 1638. Bass had been born September 7th, 1616. He died in 1699. They had 8 children together. Although Christianized, Elizabeth likely raised their children in Nansemond culture. The tribe has a matrilineal kinship system in which the children were considered to be born into their mother's clan and people. Okay. Some Nansemond claim descent from this marriage. All right. From the Pakistanis and the Native American women. The Weaver family were indentured East Indians from modern day India and Pakistan. You see that? We were free who were free in Lancaster County by about 1710. All right. By 1732, they were taxables. Note, free blacks, generally free people of color, and Indians, Native Americans had to pay a tax in Norfolk County, and taxable mulatto landowners in nearby Hartford County, North Carolina, by 1741. By 1820, there were 164 free colored members of the family in Hartford. In the 1830s, some registered as Nansemond Indians in Norfolk County. Okay. Smithsonian Institution, Nansemond Indians, 1900. These Indians is East Indians. Okay. So this is members of the Nansemond Tribe, mostly members of the Weaver and Bass families. 1900 Smithsonian Institute. Okay. Now this dude right here, he looked like a brother. All right. But he an East Indian. Okay. This female, right? The female said they were Native Americans. And these people passing as black, they don't even have woolly hair. Okay. See, these straight haired darkies took from us. Because although classified as colored and mulatto, okay, they were allowed to be indoctrinated further while we did the majority of the work, people with woolly hair. All right. The Nansemond sold their reservation in 1792 and was known as Citizen Indians. You see that? Federal recognition. The Nansemond and other landless Virginia tribes did not gain federal recognition until Congress passed a bill for it in 2018. A bill to recognize 6 Virginian tribes were introduced in both Houses of Congress. It covered the following: the Chickahominy Indian Tribe, Eastern Chickahominy Indian Tribe, Upper Mattapony Tribe, Wapahonock Tribe, Incorporated, Monacan Indian Tribe, and Nansemond Indian Tribe. These landless tribes had each applied for federal recognition since the late 20th century through the regular process of the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the Department of Interior. They had difficulty showing cultural and political continuity since the period of their tribes' dealings with the colony and state. In part, this was due to racial discrimination by the European Americans, magnified by Virginia's having been a slave society, as the Nansemond and other tribal peoples intermarried with whites or African Americans. Okay, you not know full-blood Indian Negro. European Americans assumed they were no longer Indian. The white Indians taking your shit too. But if the mother was Nansemond, she usually raised her children in their tradition. During the earliest 20th century, Virginia passed a law establishing a binary system of the one-drop rule, requiring each individual to be classified as white or colored. The latter covered anyone with any known African ancestry, regardless of other ancestry or cultural context. But the East Indians don't have no African blood, right? They don't have no African blood, but they being classified. They known as Indians being classified as Negroes. We know all this race shit is a joke. It's pseudo. Administrators refuse to acknowledge families who claim to be Indian and generally classified them as Black, destroying the continuity of records. By contrast, tribal members who were Catholic continue to be registered by churches as Indian for baptisms, marriages, and funerals. Okay. Do any of y'all have any of these Catholic records, any church records outside of what the government was classifying you as? Okay. Do you have anything that says you was Indian? You probably don't. Okay. So it goes in to talk about Walter Plecker, but we're not talking about the Negro Indian. We talking about the East Indian. Okay. Indian indentured servitude. And it talks about the East Indian Company. Okay. How they brought them over here. Right. They say it ain't no slave ships. How these people get to America then? The East Indian. Okay. How did he get to America? How did they get to America? Right. Let's continue on. We just present information. Okay. Give me a minute. I'm looking over something right quick. Because it was, okay, let's check this out right here. Indian slaves in colonial America. Okay. The seeds of what was to become modern America were planted on May 13th, 1607. Can we bring this up? Okay, I can't bring that up. This picture right here. Okay. This East Indian and this white girl right here. When British colonists arrived at an island that they would come to call Jamestown in what is now Virginia. Okay. That's on the James River, around Powhatan, right? And them 30 tribes. Okay. So in 1607, the Indians came with them. The first permanent English settlement in the New World would eventually become the rightful birthing ground of America. Its soil sprinkled with the blood of Native Americans, European settlers, and their African slaves. Okay. To this racial mix, we must now include people from the Indian subcontinent. So this is showing you that the Native Americans, they weren't Indians. Okay. It wasn't no West Indies in the Caribbean. There was no Indies in the Americas until the Spanish came. Let's get back into it. That's because while preparations are underway for a grand commemoration of Jamestown 400th anniversary in May through June 2007, we have uncovered compelling evidence of the presence of people from the Indian subcontinent going as far back as 375 years in Virginia. People identified in American court documents of the time as East Indians, Indians, or Asiatic Indians. As these South Asians melded into the population, they would be identified variously as mulatto, Negro, and colored. In the ethnic cauldron that was evolving in America, thus losing much of their racial distinctiveness with each passing generation merging into the African American community, largely unaware of their Indian roots. Okay, that boat right there, that's a schooner. And that's how kidnappees was brought over here. Okay. Now, if you go look at the decks and inside of the construction of a schooner, you will see that you can fit considerable amount of humans in the bottom decks of these ships. Considerable evidence to suggest that the Lascars or seamen were recruited from Indian ports by European trading ships, and on reaching Europe, succumbed to the promises of agents who enlisted indentured workers for the New World, or else they were taken as servants by East India Company officials who amassed their fortunes in India and subsequently returned to England and thence to their newly established colony in America, where they took their servants with them as a sign of their wealth and status as nabobs. The first East Indians in America. Okay. Runaway about the 20th of May, an East India Indian named Thomas Greenwich. He is a well-made fellow about 5 feet 4 inches high, wears his own hair, which is long and black, has thin visage, a very fly look, and remarkable fat of fine white teeth. All right. A 2003 study prepared by Martha W. McCartney, a project historian for the National Park Service Jamestown Archaeological Assessment, reveals that Captain George Menifee, who was assigned 1,200 acres of land in Jamestown in 1624 and used Tony, an East Indian, as a headwright. This is further confirmed in a 2006 report from the Colonial Williamsburg Foundation, which identifies Menifee as a wealthy English merchant who arrived in Virginia in 1622 and obtained legal right to the land by paying passage for 24 immigrants, including an Indian. Okay, where is the term Indian coming from, right? The evidence from Jamestown and Williamsburg suggests that the first South Asians may have been brought to Virginia within less than a generation of the arrival of European settlers in Virginia and a decade after the Mayflower landed in Plymouth. You see? Social historian Thomas Brown, a faculty member at Lamar University, Beaumont, Texas, has corroborated this in a 2004 research paper. Brown explains that many Indians were imported to the American colonies by way of England, arriving already Christianized and fluent in English. Okay, so who was the Indian scouts in America? All right. Indians were imported to the American colonies by way of already Christianized and fluent in English. Others arrived as slaves who had been captured and sold. It is impossible to confidently estimate the size of the South Asian population in the Western Shore counties, but East Indians outnumber Indians. In the extent colonial records after 1710 or so acknowledges Brown, it says, the Western Shore counties, but East Indians outnumber Indians in the extent in colonial records after 1710 or so. Further, he claims in the 18th century Chesapeake, South Asians stood out from sub-Saharan slaves, but in culture and appearance, both in culture and appearance. Okay. So that tells you right there that the Indians in America look like the Indians from India, all right, because both stood out in culture and appearance, both being called Negroes in America, but they not us. Since South Asians were a minority among the slave population, the community's perception of their distinctiveness persisted for a longer period of time. And most surprisingly, Brown adds there was a significant contingent of East Indian slaves in the colonial Chesapeake. Okay. The other evidence I have uncovered comes from runaway slave advertisement in 18th century colonial Virginia newspapers. Consider this. The Virginia Gazette of August 4th, 1768 describes one young East Indian as a well-made fellow. Okay, we just read that. Another is identified as an East Indian Negro man who speaks French and English. You see that? Dude is a good barber and a hairdresser. All right. Gonna go some more in. The above information is culled from a digital collection of advertisements for runaway slaves and servants found in 18th century Virginia newspapers. There are many more such references to East Indians to be found in the Geography of Slavery Project in Virginia. Okay, they over here getting it right now. These East Indians are over here getting it right now. You see what I'm saying? Francis C. Assisi acknowledges the research assistance of Elizabeth F. Powhatan in this project. All right. Let's continue on. Let's continue on. Paul Hainag, in his epic ongoing project documenting free people of color in the colonial U.S. and early America, recorded specifically and identified as such East Indian Indians. For purpose of clarification, these people were from what is now India today, a region then controlled by England. Over the years, there has been a great deal of speculation about East Indians and their exotic ancestry, especially in relationship to the identity and origins of some of the groups known as tri-racial isolates. Some speculate that these East Indians, as well as the isolate groups, were really Portuguese. Some speculate Jewish, some Gypsy. These East Indians weren't anything other than what they were documented to be. They were simply indentured servants from India, pure and simple. Okay. They even got a dude in here named Thomas Indian. Look, East Indian William Creek. Creek can only go back to the Creek Indians, right? This is an East Indian by the name of William Creek, born in 1710. All right. He testified that he was born in the East Indies and carried a young boy to England where he was apprenticed into apothecary. I believe that's how to do speeches and lectures under the Bible. All right. An East Indian named Juba was free from his indenture in Anne Arundel County in 1763. Okay, this is deep. This is deep. All right, because they standing on our backs. They getting the money. You see what I'm saying? They getting the money. That's why we got to understand us with the woolly hair. All right, it's prime attacks against us all over the world, where they trying to keep us on the bottom. White people got their culture from the East Indians. They were fascinated with the East Indians. Okay. Starting off in Powhatan territory, ran away from Hepburn's plantation near Rock Creek Bridge in Frederick County on Saturday, the 12th instant. A Negro man named Will, a little more than 5 feet high. He is of a yellow complexion, being of mixed breed between an East Indian and a Negro. Now look, between an East Indian and a Negro has a large, full eyes, long wool on his head and lips. Okay, so that also lets you know they know the difference between straight hair and woolly hair. You see that? He was an East Indian and a Negro, has large full eyes, long wool on his head. More records. You see? Okay. The study of American history often begins with the arrival of explorer Christopher Columbus, an Italian sailing for Spain and the Caribbean in 1492.
Major when it comes to us as indigenous Aborigines. Okay, what they like to call us are, are Indians. Okay, due to Christopher Columbus mistaking who he saw when he landed in South America with the Iberians with him. Okay, I'm trying to guide him into
what do you say?
Probably never heard before. All of these land masses were once together. The place that they're calling Africa, North America, South America was once called. Look at that closely. Jamestown Island. Remember when I told you, and I'm pretty sure I confused a lot of people. I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to continue reading. But I know I confused a lot of people when I told them that North America was once called Turtle Island. Now, keep in mind, I'm going to go into something that you probably never heard before. All of these land masses were once together. The place that they're calling Africa, North America, South America, Central America, Australia, okay, all of Hawaii, or this land was called Gondwana.
He said this land, America, was called Gondwana, the true motherland.
Going to link it down below so you can see the correct spelling. Do not listen to what Google was trying to tell you.
True motherland
that happened millions of years ago.
Gondwana.
No, it did not.
Okay, it didn't happen millions of years ago. Okay, we're gonna bring up Gondwana.
I had proof. I will be proving that. Let me go back.
He said he had proof. He will be proving that, but videos don't exist.
The Africans came late, and then there wasn't that many of them. And then when they got here, look at that documentary.
He said the Africans
wasn't handing them food, money for them. They were handing them food.
Indians is here.
They were not in condition to do anything. It didn't make sense the other way around. Why? Because then you were going to know, okay, that it wasn't that many slaves. And then on top of that, that everybody was slaves, even the East Indians. When they came back, they didn't bring back Africans the second time. They brought East Indians.
Boom. Okay. But he told you that 98% of African Americans are indeed Native Indians, okay, that were shipped from America to Europe, then out of Spain into Africa, right? And then they came back and they were known as African slaves.
This thing is major when it comes to us as indigenous Aborigines. Okay, what they like to call us are, are Indians. Okay, due to Christopher Columbus mistaking who he saw when he landed in South America with the Iberians with him.